Here with me now to discuss more on voting in the November election is conservative activist Scott Presler, who's making headway in the great state of Pennsylvania, where he helped register more than 15,000 Republican voters just last week alone. So, Scott, it's always a pleasure having you on the program. We've covered your cleanup efforts all across the country, whether it's Baltimore. We've covered all the different cities that you've been to. And now you're focused on registering voters, something that is super important every year, but especially this year. So how's that going so far?
I think we're seeing the fruits of our labor. You know, I put out those statistics that in the last week alone, the Democrats added 7,000 new voters to the rolls, and Republicans doubled that with 15,000. And we've seen that week after week. And, you know, I've spent the last 2 years of my life traveling the country, especially the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And let me tell you, the voters are fired up for Donald Trump.
And once again, I want to tell all of our viewers to make sure that they follow you on social media at The Persistence. That's where they can find you, because you're constantly posting updates about this. And the videos that you're posting, too, are pretty, I don't want to use the word entertaining, but, for example, we've seen you be, I don't want to say harassed by some people who may not agree with your cause, but I think that's the only word we can use. People who don't like what you're doing come up and start yelling at you. But then we also see the bright side of politics as well. People who come up and thank you for what you're doing, whether it's cleaning up cities, registering voters, even people who may not be Republicans necessarily. So when it comes to your most recent effort in Pennsylvania, as you were just talking about, what's the response been like there?
I mean, this has been the honor of my lifetime. I've gotten to see the entire country, and I listen to people's stories. And I've been to Philly and Pittsburgh and Allentown, and I've listened to the working class communities who have suffered at the hands of Joe Biden's policies, you know, having our jobs shipped overseas. And I listen to them, and they're flipping for Donald Trump. And let me tell you that the union vote is not shored up for Joe Biden either. The union bosses may be telling their workers how to vote, but the union workers are very much with President Donald Trump.
And that's fascinating, and that's information that you can really get only being on the ground, something that you're doing right now, because you're exactly right. We talk about the idea of a silent majority or silent voters or whatever it may be, but there is undoubtedly a big population of people that just doesn't feel comfortable expressing their true opinions at the time. It may be because of the current cancel culture that we're in, or because they don't want friends or neighbors to all of a sudden cut ties with them or whatever it may be. We've run several stories like that. It's actually a heartbreaking development where people can't have political discourse in a way that is, you know, constructive as opposed to just absolutely destructive. But when you're talking to people on the ground too, are they talking about President Trump? Are they talking about issues? Are they just talking about Joe Biden, that he's not their candidate, despite being from the state of Pennsylvania?
Oh, no, I want to make it very clear. This is not an anti-Joe Biden vote. This is very much a pro-Donald Trump vote. We are thrilled that he's cut our taxes. We are thrilled that he's securing the border. We are thrilled that he's bringing jobs back from other countries. We are thrilled that he is finally talking tough on China and on national security and on making sure that we are manufacturing our drugs here in America. And this is very much a pro-Donald Trump vote, as opposed to the Democrats who do not have fire or energy for their candidate. Theirs is an anti-Donald Trump vote.
And that is a message, too, that resonates among so many Americans, not just Republicans, not just Democrats, for example. But when we're talking about things that put American citizens first, that is something that is so important for many people, especially when you're talking about the economy right there, because there is a part of this country that is economically left behind. And part of it is due to our prior politicians, whether it's NAFTA, whether it's, as you said, China stealing our manufacturing, drug prices soaring up. That's something that affects everyone, regardless of your political affiliation. So when you are carrying out these efforts, for example, and you're trying to talk to different people as well, does it change depending on what state you go to, or are they pretty much in line with the same issues?
Americans are the same no matter where you go. You know, the food's a little bit different, the accent changes, but we all want the same thing. We want to be able to raise our families in an environment that is safe and secure. So let me tell you, the Democrats wanting to defund our police terrifies voters across the country. And I don't care if you're in Georgia's 6th district with Karen Handel, Republican running for Congress. I don't care if you're in South Carolina's 1st district with Nancy Mace, Republican running for Congress. And I don't care if you're in California, in Sacramento, with Buzz Patterson, or Modesto with Ted Howes running for Congress. This is an issue that is terribly important to voters across the country. We want to be able to raise our families in a safe environment and not have to worry about domestic terrorists burning down our cities like in Kenosha, Wisconsin. I went there. I helped pick up the rubble with Black Voices for Trump, and we saw that members of the community were just devastated. Their entire lives were taken away from them because of acts of domestic terrorism in Kenosha, Wisconsin.
Yeah, and I think you're leading an effort that a lot of people sympathize with, regardless, as I was saying, regardless of political affiliation. But I think the Republican Party can also learn about what you're doing as well, too, because what you're doing affects people directly. It gets people active directly. It's not polling numbers, calling people up, telling them to support this candidate or anything like that. It's getting people involved in their community, which I think is something that the Republican Party can learn from, and I think just people in general can sympathize with. But before I let you go, too, I want to make sure I get your handle right. It's at Scott Presler, your name. You can follow you on Twitter, Instagram, any social media, really, for that matter. And you can see what Scott is doing on the ground in all these places because it's very important work. Scott, I really appreciate you coming on the show
and
tonight.
Alex, real quick,
yeah,
if I may, I just wanted to say that please don't wake up on November 4th wishing and hoping that you had done more. And I make a commitment to every single one of you at home. I will not bow down to political pressure. I will not cower. I will not buckle. I will not bend. And I promise that I will do everything within my power to re-elect Donald Trump. And I hope that you will join with me.
Yeah,
Thank you, Alex.
I mean, on November 4th, we're going to figure out who was involved, who was not, and if their efforts were enough. And I don't think anybody wants to live with that kind of regret, regardless of where you stand politically. But Scott, I really appreciate you coming on the show tonight once again. Thank you for what you're doing on the streets as well. Thank you.